All right, so Dr. Phil was on The View, and he said something really, really cool about how the country handled COVID in regards to kids.
I saw this.
Wow.
And it was, maybe just watch it and then see if you agree or not.
Yeah.
But I thought it was really impressive.
And it seemed like the ladies on The View were so out of touch with what actually happened. It was crazy.
Who would have thought?
I'm shocked. A bunch of rich ladies don't know what happened during COVID.
Yeah. Here we
It
go.
feels like they had like 3 layers of different like they had like, it's almost like a king with their court, and they were just telling them what was happened, and they didn't actually know what happened.
It's kind of like Bill Maher.
Yeah.
Bill Maher's like, the economy's great.
Referring to in the last segment how much has changed since you first got started in this, and one of the things is social media. So you say you're not the only voice in your kids' ears, so you have to be the best voice. Explain that.
Well, think about it. In like 08, 09, smartphones came on, and kids they stopped living their lives and started watching people live their lives. And so we saw the biggest spike and the highest levels of depression, anxiety, loneliness, and suicidality since records have ever been kept. And it's just continued on and on and on. And then COVID hits 10 years later, and the same agencies that knew that are the agencies that shut down the schools for 2 years. Who does that? Who takes away the support system for these children? Who takes them away and shuts it down? And by the way, when they shut it down, they stopped the mandated reporters from being able to see children that were being abused and sexually molested, and in fact sent them home and abandoned them to their abusers with no way to watch, and referrals dropped 50 to 60%. So
There was also a pandemic going on, and they were trying to save
This is the stupid part.
lives. Remember, we know a lot of folks who died during this, so it wasn't, people weren't laying around eating lawn, but, well,
Damn
you know
right.
what, we're lucky. Maybe we're lucky they didn't, because we kept them out of the
We knew they weren't dying, dude.
places
But she doesn't
they
know
could
that.
be safe, because no one wanted to believe we had an issue.
Are you saying no school children died of COVID?
I'm saying it was the safest group. They were the less vulnerable group, and they suffered and will suffer more from the mismanagement of COVID than they will from the exposure to COVID. And that's not an opinion, that's a fact.
And he got an audience of bump.
That's crazy. So
He got the away crowd.
Yeah, away teams. Fucking.
Is he the first like not A-lister, but like, you know how I feel like there's like always this pop culture narrative and everyone has the same side almost all the time? Is he the first person in this group to kind of like say the other side? Because I feel like what he's saying is a lot of us feel it, right? And it's like discussions that we have at home, like, is this right? But then you hear fucking Leonardo DiCaprio or whoever, like they all talk about it, like, oh, okay. Like, because most people aren't very like politically driven or even like really thinking about the big scope of things. They're just trying to take care of business at home. So you just hear what like Whoopi Goldberg has to say, oh, okay, yeah, I guess that's what's going on. So like on almost all TV, I always hear like, the way we handled COVID is the fucking best. Everyone get a vaccine, right? And I feel like he's like, that's like the first time I heard even another voice like give a different perspective.
Well informed too.
In that world.
Exactly, yeah. I think that's the first thing I've ever seen of that either. It's usually like an outlier that's coming in and everyone's just kind of like ganging up on him and he's trying to tell everybody.
Yeah.
But this feels like
Because Tucker got kicked out right away. He goes, oh, you're not gonna fall in line? Get the fuck out of here.
I would see that if they're doing it on their personal social, like A-listers that might not toe the line, and then they'll do it on Twitter or whatever, but never on a platform like The View.
On ABC, where
ABC.
on the news you see a bunch of shit about COVID at night and about how like if you don't take the vax you're gonna die and shit like that for like 2 years. Wild shit.
It's a little strange that they let him even be there.
She is so out of touch because since the beginning, the stats have shown that kids are the least vulnerable.
Yeah, always.
And then she's like, oh, saving the kids. Like,
We didn't know. And I'm like, what do you mean we didn't?
We knew from the beginning they were the safest.
yeah, we knew senior citizens were the most at risk.
Yep.
The ones with comorbidities are the most at risk from the beginning.
Which made no fucking sense to shut down the elementary schools.
But I mean, just so that we're not in the hive mentality, we didn't even know how long COVID was quote unquote gonna last.
15 days.
Exactly.
You did.
Yeah, before.
So like the idea, even in the beginning, even when we were on our first like 3-week lockdown, it wasn't like anybody was anticipating this is gonna go on for like 2 years or 3 years or whatever. So like I can at least maybe empathize with like parents being like, okay, like we'll take our kids out of school or whatever because you didn't know it was gonna last super long. You know what I'm saying?
But it was also look, there was a lot to it that made no sense. Like, why were podcasts allowed to go meet and shit, but like kids can't go to school? Like legit, like we were all in that golden little section because some lawmaker likes a group of podcasters enough to let us all drive and we could all meet each other. But kids couldn't. It made no sense.
Like even my studio didn't have to close, but like a taco restaurant or whatever, or something smaller than my studio would have to close.
But it ruins so many businesses.
It was random. It was like, oh yeah, your studio can have 10 to 12 people in it, but a place can't have 3 people meet up.
Do you remember when they were taking the rims off of basketball courts?
Yeah.
Like at parks.
Yeah,
the
ridiculous.
rims off of basketball courts.
They filled the skate park with sand.
They were arresting people jogging on the beach.
To the guy who's fishing alone.
There's people surfing in helicopters. You'd be like, get out of the water, get out of the water. And they're like, what the fuck? I'm surfing by myself.
That's why I'm just so like, I'm so surprised to hear someone still try to speak back to him about it, because he's right. The mismanagement is going to cause effects way past.
It already has.
But
And there's several countries and U.S. states that said this is ridiculous, and after a month, like Florida, they were just like, after a month, we're like, no, we're not doing this.
When did people become fans of how the government managed things? Why are you a fan of that? Like, why are you a diehard fan of how your government manages something?
That is the weirdest thing.
It's always been known since the beginning that stuff gets mismanaged. This is a reality.
And when you live in our style of government, like, we're supposed to participate, we're supposed to scrutinize, we're supposed to, this is like, we don't deserve our government that we're supposed to participate. We're not in a fucking communist.
From our government, our rights come from God. That's the whole idea of like what we did, what we set out, where it says like, it's like the first thing about our system is that it's not supposed to come from the government, but we don't teach that.
We diverted from that. It's a constitutional republic. It's not really a democracy. But even then, if it was a democracy, no one's participating, and that's the issue. Is like, you act like we're in this different country, like a communist country, where it's just like, well, the government will handle it. That's their job. It's not our job. That's the weirdest part to me. The weirdest part is like, you see examples of like Scandinavian countries that were like, we're just gonna do herd immunity. We're not gonna, and they were fine.
But they were fucking scrutinized at the time. You remember that?
Yeah.
They were getting hit on every show.
They were fine.
Yeah.
In Florida, they were fine.
They were all called a bunch of hillbillies.
County was fine.
Exactly. You go to Orange County, they're like, take that mask off. You go to LA County, they're like, put that mask on.
And by the way, like, for anybody who wants to say high mentality, go for it. But we lived it, dude. We were there. I saw it.
And a lot of people, even during the pandemic, a lot of people that were kind of on the same talking points as Whoopi Goldberg, a couple years removed, they're like, yeah, this was kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not. Obviously, everybody wants to save as many lives as possible, and nobody wants anyone to fucking die from this disease. But at the same time, it's like, two things can be true at once. It's like they're trying to save people from these kids getting sick potentially, right? Because we kind of don't know what's happening. But there's so much more issues that could happen if these kids are not socializing, and kids are fucking weird now. Everyone's kind of fucking weird. Everyone took damage from the lockdown.
Got really fucking weird.
He just golfs all the time now.
The thing that he's really centering on, which I didn't even consider, was how he was talking about how like some social services that have to deal with kids that are being abused in their own fucking home, they now no longer have access to these kids. I didn't think about that at all.
Yeah.
The sad part too is a lot of these kids that come from like low economic families, they also rely on the school lunch.
Yeah. That's why they were giving out free lunches.
Yeah, so some of them, like some of the schools that have the dope enough program, they could be like, hey, just come to school, we'll at least pass the lunch out to you, and then form like the fucking 6 feet distance line or whatever. But a lot of schools, like the ones that require that, that depend on the lunch from schools, they can't even get it.
Dude, some kids
straight missing a meal.
Some kids, like the kids who are bullies, right? They had nobody to beat up. They had to beat up people at home and stuff like that.
That's true. And if they're only child, who they being?
That's what I'm saying.
Who they being?
And that gets and then you get depressed.
You depressed. You had nobody to beat.
Lash out at.
Whose lunch money you gonna steal?
Now you got to look at yourself.
You gonna steal your own lunch? That's hard.
It just sounds so weird to like hear the other side
defending
be
it?
attempted. Like I'm not saying like they shouldn't say that, but
They
like
took it personally
Maybe there's
It's emotional.
Like, exactly.
It's completely emotional.
because it's such a moral high ground issue.
we don't know who's paying the network, not necessarily their show, but like the network. Exactly.
for sure.
Well, I think if anything, there is a hive mind when it comes to traditional media.
Yeah.
Like I do see a pattern where they just don't question certain things. Certain things are so taboo that there's no discussion. It's almost as if like if you do, then you're kind of possessed by the devil and they don't want to touch you. It's the weirdest thing.
It's so weird.
I'll play another thing that he said real quick. He was talking about kids being smuggled over the border. And again, there was like a weird pushback about it that I kind of...
Why don't they just sit and listen? Like, why are they fighting him on it?
It's their personal.
That's weird.
Just listen to what he says here and how they respond to it.
Facts. What did you take away from that experience, and what kind of reporting are you going to be bringing back from that experience?
I'll tell you a fact I took away. I talked to the head of all the border guards down there, the head of the union. I asked him straight up, kids are coming over the border with numbers written on them, phone numbers and addresses. Do we check those out? He said, well, we call them. Is it possible that we're sending them into known prostitution rings or sweatshops? He said, it's not possible. It is absolute. We are using American tax dollars to ship children into known prostitution and sweatshops.
Some children.
Well, who knows?
Why does that fucking matter?
Are you?
That's a Nick question, dude.
They call the number and say, do you know about this child? They say yes. Will you receive them when they come? Yes. I said, is it possible that's a prostitution ring? He said, we know enough to know that in a number of cases, it has turned out to be absolute sex ring. It has turned out to be an absolute sweatshop. I said, how is this possible?
Well, what do they
He said, it is happening.
What do they do then if they know that that's happening? Where's the U.S. Attorney's Office? Here's the
Damn good question.
You have to re-ask that question when we come back. Sonny, you were about to ask.
We had to cut to commercial and not address it again.
That's the whole R. Kelly question. Where like, do you like whatever teens like define teen?
Yeah.
Define teenage.
Yeah, define teenage.
It's funny to hear someone say some children or all children. Like, what the
But meanwhile, how many reports have we done on social on JK about how all these big Fritos, all these giant corporations are just using like
Tyson chicken.
Yeah, migrant kids to do all their
the
shit.
Hyundai factory?
Yeah, bro, like how many articles do we do about that?
Guatemalan kids working the assembly lines?
Yeah, choking on Cheeto dust and stuff. Crazy.
Yeah, it's just so weird to hear somebody try to be a voice of reason, and then instead of like opening the dialogue, it's like they're trying to close the dialogue.
Yeah, instead of asking
That
him,
can't possibly
like,
be true.
questions that to further understand, they're like trying to poke holes in his argument.
Yeah,
Imagine you're in a community meeting right now, and then you're like, man, there's kids in our community who are being sex trafficked, and then someone's like, some.
But we'll laugh at that when we come back in our next video.